Hickory, North Carolina, August 2019. The video opens with the story of Doug Teague, a seasoned Bigfoot hunter who had a startling encounter in Hickory, North Carolina. Doug, while walking his dog Daisy in the woods, stumbled upon something he believed to be a Bigfoot. As he was checking trail cameras, he heard loud knocking sounds, often associated with Bigfoot activity, and soon after, spotted a large, unidentifiable creature standing on a ridge. In an attempt to document the sighting, Doug started recording the creature. He followed its massive footprints, which he later cast in plaster. These casts were examined by an anthropologist, who concluded that the footprints likely belonged to a creature around 15 feet tall, much larger than any known animal in the area. The anthropologist, along with other experts, suggested that the prints looked genuine, raising questions about whether Doug's encounter was the real deal. The video also emphasizes that Doug reported the creature throwing stones at him, behavior that is unusual for animals like bears but has been noted in Bigfoot lore. The sighting sparked renewed interest in the region's Bigfoot history and left viewers wondering, was this truly an encounter with the legendary Sasquatch, or just another elaborate hoax? San Gabriel Wilderness, California, 2020. Another compelling story comes from the San Gabriel Wilderness in California, where a hiker in 2020 captured footage of a mysterious creature while filming the scenic landscape. As the hiker panned his camera, he noticed a large figure in the trees below. The creature, which appeared to be between 10 to 15 feet tall, stood completely still, which only deepened the mystery. While the San Gabriel area is not typically associated with Bigfoot sightings, this wasn't the first time something similar had been reported nearby. In 2018, a woman in the San Bernardino Mountains, located about 70 miles east of San Gabriel, claimed to have seen a Sasquatch up in the trees while hiking with her daughters. She described seeing its head move, confirming that it wasn't a shadow or an optical illusion. The eerie resemblance between the two encounters raises the question, could it have been the same creature, or is there a more rational explanation? Mushroom Hunter's Encounter. Northern Illinois, 2015. In another strange event, a mushroom hunter in northern Illinois had an unsettling experience while foraging in a local forest. The hunter, while recording his search for mushrooms, caught strange sounds and glimpses of something lurking in the distance. In the footage, he observes mushrooms with what appears to be bite marks, possibly indicating the presence of an unusual creature. The noises in the video, particularly a loud, eerie sound, alarmed both the hunter and viewers. Some speculated that the noise seemed as though it came from a movie, causing skepticism about the authenticity of the footage. However, the incident gained enough traction that it was featured on the History Channel. The hunter later returned to the same spot 6 years after the encounter, but this time nothing unusual occurred. Still, the mystery of what he encountered in 2015 remains unresolved, fueling speculation about Bigfoot's presence in the area. Bigfoot in the United Kingdom, 2021. Although Bigfoot is traditionally associated with the wild mountainous regions of North America, the video introduces a lesser-known aspect of the legend Bigfoot sightings in the United Kingdom. In 2021, Lee Brickley, a Bigfoot enthusiast, claimed to have found physical evidence of a Bigfoot-like creature in Cannock Chase, a forest in Staffordshire, England. The area, known for its history of paranormal activity, including sightings of UFOs, werewolves, and ghostly figures, has been a hotspot for supernatural phenomena for centuries. Brickley discovered massive footprints, measuring 41 centimeters from toe to heel, nearly twice the size of an average human footprint. In addition to the prints, he also found huge claw marks on a tree and the remains of a mutilated deer nearby. The deer had its throat ripped out and was covered in bite marks, indicating an attack by a large, powerful predator. These discoveries led Brickley to believe that a Yeti-like creature could be living in the UK's forests, though skeptics argue that the evidence could have a more mundane explanation. Pennsylvania has had its fair share of Sasquatch sightings, and one of the most compelling cases came in 1980 when locals discovered a giant footprint near Johnstown. The print was remarkable for several reasons. It had 6 toes, and the distance between the 2 imprints suggested a creature with an enormous stride, 8 feet between steps. The footprint, measuring over 17 inches, was found near a home, and locals reported a foul odor in the area along with strange, otherworldly noises. This sighting harkened back to earlier reports from 1858, when locals in Pennsylvania described encounters with a wild man who walked upright and terrorized livestock. The state has a long history of Sasquatch-related folklore, and the Johnstown print is considered one of the most puzzling pieces of evidence to date. Michael Green, a retired state investigator, had been searching for evidence of Bigfoot for over 20 years when he captured what he believed to be definitive proof in 2009. Using a thermal imager in North Carolina's Uwharrie National Forest, Green recorded footage of a large, bipedal figure. The thermal imager captured only heat signatures, meaning that the creature in question appeared as a solid color, unlike a person in a costume whose body heat would show up in irregular patches. In the footage, the creature is seen swaying and reaching for food that Green had left out as bait: bananas, apples, peanut butter, and snack bars. Green estimated the figure to be about 7.5 feet tall, though it's difficult to be certain due to the limitations of the thermal imaging. The footage, dubbed the squeaky thermal due to the use of squeaky toys to lure the creature, remains one of the most discussed pieces of Bigfoot evidence. Some suggest the creature was a genuine Sasquatch, while others believe it could have been a human or another animal. A chilling story from Canada involves an explorer named Sincere Guam, who had a terrifying encounter in the wilderness near Hudson Bay. After a difficult week, Guam set out on an expedition to clear his head. While hiking, he noticed some unusual signs, such as a massive mound of excrement and a large amount of urine on a tree. However, things quickly took a darker turn when Guam realized he was being watched. As night fell, Guam spotted a creature with pink human-like features. But it was not human. He was surrounded by eerie screams and the sense that he was being hunted by more than one creature. In a desperate attempt to escape, Guam ran through the forest, only to be chased by what he believed were multiple Bigfoots. Eventually he collapsed, but the creatures stopped their pursuit as he neared a road, and he was rescued. Though he survived the encounter, Guam was hospitalized for both physical and psychological injuries, and the story later leaked through hospital records. The next story revisits an older yet still widely debated piece of Bigfoot evidence. In 2007, Rick Jacobs captured 2 blurry images of a creature in the Allegheny National Forest, Pennsylvania, using a trail camera set up to track deer. The creature, which some believe to be a juvenile Bigfoot, was photographed as it passed by the camera. While some experts think it could be a bear suffering from mange, others argue that the creature's shape and movement suggest it is more likely a primate, despite the lack of native primates in the region. The video recounts an intense and detailed encounter experienced by Mike Woolley, a seasoned hunter, in the remote wilderness of Louisiana. His story, set on a cold December day in 1981, describes a chilling face-to-face meeting with not one, but 2 Bigfoot creatures. Setting the scene, Mike Woolley was deep in the Case National Forest, a familiar hunting ground. He had spent years hunting in this dense, secluded area with tall pines and thick underbrush, feeling at home in the isolation. That day, Mike was perched 10 feet off the ground in his deer stand, quietly observing the wilderness around him. The stillness of the forest was only broken by the occasional rustling of leaves or birds in the distance. Hours passed uneventfully until the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the forest floor. The first signs. Suddenly, a young doe burst through the underbrush, sprinting across the clearing with an urgency that alarmed Mike. Something was clearly chasing it. As Mike watched, the forest fell eerily silent, a stillness that heightened his tension. His heart pounded as he scanned the area where the deer had emerged, expecting to see a predator, but what stepped into view was far beyond what he could have imagined. The creature appears. A massive figure emerged from the thick foliage, walking on 2 legs. The creature stood over 7 feet tall, with a broad chest and immense shoulders covered in dark, matted hair. Its face had a strikingly human-like quality, yet it was distinctly ape-like, with deep-set eyes and a flat nose. Mike realized with a shock that he was looking at what many people would call a Bigfoot. The realization fear gripped Mike as he stared at the creature, which was now looking directly at him. The intensity of its gaze sent a shiver down his spine, as if the Bigfoot was assessing him, determining whether he posed a threat. Frozen in his stand, Mike debated his options. Armed with only a rifle, he wasn't confident that a single shot would be enough to stop such a powerful being. He had heard stories of Bigfoot before but had always been skeptical. Now, faced with the reality of the creature, he was in awe and terror. Without warning, the Bigfoot let out a deep guttural growl that seemed to shake the very trees around him. The sound was both a warning and a display of dominance, meant to intimidate Mike into submission. The chase begins. As Mike prepared to defend himself, a second figure appeared. This smaller creature, presumably a female, moved with cautious grace. It stood just behind the larger Bigfoot, watching Mike closely. Realizing he was outnumbered, Mike knew he needed to escape. He slowly began lowering himself from the stand, careful not to provoke the creatures. However, as soon as his feet touched the ground, the larger Bigfoot charged at him with terrifying speed. It crashed through the underbrush, intent on reaching him. Mike, fueled by adrenaline, sprinted towards his truck. The forest seemed to close in around him as he raced through the trees, the sound of the creature's heavy footfalls growing closer. The smaller Bigfoot paralleled him, moving through the woods on his left, keeping pace but maintaining distance. Reaching the truck, Mike's truck finally came into view. With trembling hands, he fumbled to get the key into the ignition, all the while hearing the Bigfoot's guttural breathing just behind him. As he started the engine, he glanced up to see the larger creature standing at the edge of the clearing, watching him. Its intense gaze locked onto Mike, but it made no move to approach the vehicle. Mike wasted no time. He slammed his foot on the gas and sped down the forest road, leaving the two Bigfoots behind. Aftermath, shaken and breathless, Mike drove for miles before stopping to process what had just happened. He had come face to face with something that defied all logic and understanding. It wasn't until years later that he began to talk about his experience, describing the creatures with a mix of fear and respect. Mike was particularly struck by the intelligence he saw in their eyes, which suggested they were far more than simple animals. His encounter became one of the most detailed and chilling Bigfoot stories ever recorded, adding to the mysterious lore of these elusive creatures in Louisiana. For Mike Woolley, the encounter was life-changing. It left him convinced that something mysterious and unexplained lurks in the deep woods of America. While skeptics might dismiss his story as fantasy or misidentification, Mike's detailed account continues to stand out as one of the most compelling pieces of Bigfoot lore. The encounter features a first-hand Bigfoot encounter story from a man nicknamed the Goat Man, set in the late 1980s near the California-Oregon border. Known for his honest and peaceful lifestyle, Goat Man recounts his terrifying experience while living a hermit's life in the secluded forests. Goat Man, a self-described hippie, had moved to the wilderness with his wife Autumn to live off the land, growing crops and avoiding civilization. They lived in isolation near Colston Valley for many years until Autumn fell ill. In an effort to help her, Goat Man made a trek into Ashland, Oregon to buy medicine. His journey back, however, would become an unforgettable nightmare. The encounter. On his way home through the dense forest, Goat Man began to feel uneasy, sensing he was being followed. He soon heard heavy footsteps paralleling him, and before long the eerie sounds escalated into high-pitched screams that filled the night air. Believing he was being stalked, Goat Man quickened his pace, but the presence kept following him through the woods. When he finally caught a glimpse of the creature, it was massive, standing at least 9 feet tall. The figure darted through the trees at an incredible speed, outpacing him with ease. The creature, which he identified as Bigfoot, seemed intent on chasing him, even throwing large limbs in his direction. The escape. As Goat Man raced through the forest, the Bigfoot continued to stalk him, maintaining a close distance but never fully attacking. Exhausted and terrified, Goat Man finally made it back to his camp, where Autumn was waiting. She had heard the final terrifying scream from the creature, confirming that his experience wasn't a hallucination. Aftermath. The screams continued for several nights, making the couple feel increasingly threatened. Eventually, they decided to move to a different area, but the incident left a lasting impact. Goat Man shared this experience with few people during his lifetime, but it stands as one of the more chilling Bigfoot stories from the Pacific Northwest. Are you brave enough to uncover the truth behind the mysterious sighting in Oregon, 2022? In the dense, misty forests of Oregon, an eerie sighting took place in 2022. Local hikers, known for their familiarity with the terrain, reported a series of strange occurrences that culminated in a chilling encounter. The setting, a group of seasoned hikers set out for their annual trek through the rugged trails of Oregon's wilderness. The area, known for its lush greenery and isolated beauty, had always been a sanctuary for those seeking solitude and adventure. However, this trip would prove to be unlike any other. The encounter. As the group ventured deeper into the forest, they began to notice unusual signs. Large, unidentifiable footprints marked the muddy ground, and peculiar sounds echoed through the trees. Initially dismissing these as the work of local wildlife, the hikers pressed on. But as night fell, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. One of the hikers, equipped with a night vision camera, captured a fleeting glimpse of a towering figure moving swiftly through the underbrush. The creature, seemingly aware of their presence, let out a low, guttural growl that sent shivers down their spines. The hikers, now on high alert, decided to turn back, but the sense of being watched persisted. The aftermath. Upon returning to civilization, the hikers shared their footage and experiences with local authorities and cryptozoologists. The evidence, though inconclusive, added to the growing number of mysterious sightings in the region. The incident remains a topic of intrigue and speculation, further deepening the enigma surrounding the Oregon wilderness. In the vast, untamed wilderness of Alaska, an experienced hunter had an encounter that would change his life forever. It was 2018, and the hunter, known for his skills and deep knowledge of the Alaskan terrain, embarked on a solo expedition. The setting. The hunter ventured into the remote forests where the dense vegetation and rugged landscape provided a perfect habitat for a range of wildlife. The air was crisp, and the silence of the wilderness was only broken by the occasional rustle of leaves and distant animal calls. Little did he know, something far more mysterious was lurking in the shadows. The encounter. As he tracked a herd of elk, the hunter noticed an unsettling silence fall over the area. The usual sounds of the forest had ceased, replaced by an eerie stillness. Suddenly, he spotted something out of the corner of his eye, a large, shadowy figure moving swiftly through the trees. With his heart pounding, he raised his rifle and peered through the scope. What he saw defied explanation. A massive bipedal creature covered in dark, matted fur. The creature's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and it seemed to be studying him with an almost human-like intelligence. The hunter, frozen in place, watched as the creature disappeared into the forest. Shaken, he quickly made his way back to his camp, constantly looking over his shoulder. The aftermath. Upon returning to civilization, the hunter shared his story with fellow outdoorsmen and local authorities. Skeptics dismissed it as a case of mistaken identity or an overactive imagination, but those who knew the hunter believed his tale. The encounter added to the growing number of reports from the Alaskan wilderness, fueling speculation and debate. What did the hunter see that day? The answer remains a mystery, but the legend of Bigfoot continues to echo through the forests of Alaska, captivating the minds of those who hear it. In the summer of 2017, a group of friends decided to explore the Rocky Mountains in Colorado for a weekend camping trip. They were seasoned campers, familiar with the wilderness, and eager to enjoy a few days away from the hustle and bustle of city life. The setting. The group set up camp in a secluded area, surrounded by towering pine trees and the sounds of nature. As night fell, they gathered around a roaring campfire, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. The flickering flames cast long shadows, adding to the mystical ambiance of the forest. The encounter. As the night grew darker, one of the friends noticed a pair of glowing eyes reflecting the firelight from the edge of the woods. They dismissed it as a curious animal, but the eyes seemed to move closer and the atmosphere grew tense. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl echoed through the trees, sending chills down their spines. The friends fell silent, straining to see through the darkness. Then, emerging from the shadows, they saw a massive humanoid figure covered in thick, dark fur. It stood at the edge of the firelight, watching them intently. The friends, paralyzed with fear, could only stare in disbelief. The creature seemed to regard them with a mix of curiosity and caution, before slowly retreating back into the forest. The encounter lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity. The aftermath. Shaken and unable to sleep, the group packed up their camp and left at first light. Back in civilization, they shared their story with friends and family, who were both fascinated and skeptical. What did they see that night? Was it a bear, a trick of the light, or something far more mysterious? In the summer of 2016, a seasoned forest ranger named Alex was on his usual patrol in the dense forests of Washington state. Known for his deep knowledge of the local wildlife and terrain, Alex had encountered almost every animal native to the region, but this day would be different. The setting. As the sun began to set, casting an orange hue over the forest, Alex was making his way back to the ranger station. The forest was alive with the sounds of birds settling in for the night and the distant rustling of nocturnal creatures awakening. The encounter. While crossing a familiar clearing, Alex noticed an unusual stillness in the air. The usual forest sounds had ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a large, shadowy figure moving through the trees. Intrigued and cautious, Alex approached the area where he had seen the figure. To his astonishment, he found large, human-like footprints embedded in the soft earth, far larger than any human or known animal could make. The forest ranger's heart pounded as he scanned the area, his flashlight cutting through the gathering darkness. Just then, a deep, resonant growl echoed through the trees, sending shivers down his spine. He turned to see a massive, bipedal creature covered in dark fur standing a few yards away, partially obscured by the foliage. The creature stared at him with an intensity that Alex had never experienced before. It was as if time stood still. Then, in a blink, the creature turned and vanished into the forest, leaving Alex in stunned silence. The aftermath. Shaken by the encounter, Alex returned to the ranger station, documenting every detail of what he had witnessed. Despite his detailed report, many of his colleagues were skeptical, attributing his experience to fatigue or an overactive imagination. Yet Alex knew what he had seen was real. In the spring of 2019, an avid hiker named Sarah embarked on a solo trek through the rugged terrain of Utah's Uinta Mountains. Sarah, an experienced outdoorswoman, was well prepared for the journey, equipped with the latest gear and a deep respect for the wilderness. The setting. As she ventured deeper into the mountains, the landscape grew more isolated, the towering pines and jagged rock formations creating an air of mystery and solitude. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the crisp mountain air filled her lungs as she navigated the narrow trails. The encounter. Late one afternoon, as Sarah was setting up camp near a secluded lake, she noticed an odd noise emanating from the forest. It was a low, guttural sound, unlike anything she had heard before. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, she decided to investigate. Stepping cautiously through the underbrush, Sarah's heart raced as the sounds grew louder. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a clearing where the ground was littered with broken branches and disturbed earth. In the middle of the chaos were enormous footprints, far larger than any human or animal tracks she had ever seen. Panic set in as she realized she was not alone. The air grew thick with tension and a cold sweat broke out on her brow. Sarah quickly turned to head back to her campsite, but before she could take more than a few steps, a massive, shadowy figure emerged from the trees. The creature stood tall, covered in dark matted fur, its eyes reflecting an intelligence and curiosity that sent chills down her spine. For a moment they stood frozen, staring at each other in silent confrontation. Then, with a sudden fluid motion, the creature retreated into the depths of the forest, leaving Sarah breathless and shaken. The aftermath. Trembling, Sarah returned to her campsite, hastily packing her belongings and abandoning her plans for the night. She made her way back to civilization, haunted by the encounter. Despite sharing her story with fellow hikers and local authorities, many dismissed her experience as a figment of her imagination or a misidentification of a known animal. Yet, Sarah knew what she had seen was real. Her unsettling experience in the Uinta Mountains added another chapter to the enduring mystery of Bigfoot. In the dense, remote forests of Montana, a group of wildlife researchers set out on a mission in the summer of 2014, equipped with night vision cameras to document nocturnal animal behavior. The team, consisting of seasoned biologists and field experts, had no idea that their expedition would yield something far beyond their scientific expectations. As night fell, the forest came alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures stirring. The researchers positioned their cameras strategically, hoping to capture footage of elusive wildlife. Hours passed with nothing unusual, but just as the team was about to call it a night, one of the cameras picked up a strange, bipedal figure moving through the trees. The night vision footage revealed a large, dark silhouette, walking upright with a fluid, almost human-like gait. The creature's eyes glowed eerily in the infrared light, and its movements were deliberate and purposeful. The team watched in stunned silence as the figure paused briefly, seemingly aware of the camera's presence before disappearing into the thick underbrush. The analysis. The researchers immediately reviewed the footage, their excitement tempered by a sense of disbelief. They analyzed the video frame by frame, noting the creature's height, gait, and the way it navigated the terrain. Despite their extensive knowledge of wildlife, they couldn't identify the creature. It didn't match the profile of any known animal in the region. The impact. The night vision footage sparked a flurry of debate and speculation within the scientific community and among Bigfoot enthusiasts. Skeptics argued it was a hoax or a misinterpretation, while believers hailed it as some of the most compelling evidence yet of Bigfoot's existence. The researchers, maintaining their scientific integrity, released the footage to the public, inviting further scrutiny and investigation. Though the mystery remains unsolved, the night vision footage from Montana continues to intrigue and inspire those who seek to uncover the truth behind the legend of Bigfoot. In the remote, fog-shrouded waters off the coast of Maine, a seasoned fisherman named Tom had an encounter that would forever alter his perception of reality. It was the early hours of a misty morning in 2021, and Tom was out on his boat, hoping to catch the day's haul. As he navigated through the dense fog, the only sounds were the gentle lapping of the waves and the distant call of seabirds. Suddenly, his boat lurched to a stop as if something massive had snagged his net. Tom's heart raced as he peered over the edge, expecting to see a large fish or debris, but what he saw defied explanation. The encounter. Emerging from the water was a massive, hairy figure standing at least 8 feet tall, its eyes glowing with an unnatural luminescence locked onto Tom's. The creature's form was both human-like and beastly, covered in dark, wet fur that clung to its muscular frame. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as Tom and the creature stared at each other, both equally stunned. The air was thick with tension, and Tom could feel his pulse pounding in his ears. The departure. Without warning, the creature let out a guttural roar, shaking the boat and sending ripples across the water. It then plunged back into the depths, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Tom was left standing there, breathless and bewildered, questioning the reality of what he'd just witnessed. The aftermath. When Tom returned to shore, he recounted his story to friends and fellow fishermen, but many dismissed it as a tall tale or a trick of the fog. However, Tom knew what he had seen, and the encounter left an indelible mark on him. He became more cautious on the water, always scanning the horizon for any sign of the mysterious creature. Tom's encounter added to the growing number of reports of Bigfoot-like creatures in the region, sparking renewed interest and investigation. While skeptics remain, those who have heard Tom's story can't help but wonder what truly lurks beneath the surface of Maine's foggy waters. As we wrap up these chilling Bigfoot encounters, what do you think? Is something really out there in the woods? Whether you're a believer or not, these stories give us all a reason to wonder. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and share your own stories in the comments. Your experience could be featured next. It helps support the channel and keeps the mystery alive. Stay curious and watch your step out there.